I think even though Microsoft is not a Main Street company, its roots are in a community, and the community is better because that business has its roots in that community. And InSperity didn't start out with 90 offices across the country.
Welcome to the Value Factory Podcast, brought to you by One Accord. We're all about helping businesses thrive and grow through leadership, strategy, and meaningful impact. Now, whether you're a seasoned executive or just starting out, our goal is to provide insights and inspiration to help you navigate your journey. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Value Factory brought to you by One Accord. Our focus here is delivering value to folks that are entrepreneurs, founders, owners, executives in companies in all areas of revenue, operations, personnel, expense control, really driving that economic value or enterprise value of companies. Today, we're joined by Rob Torres with InSperity. Rob, welcome to the Value Factory.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're going to talk a bit about what InSperity is, really what a PEO is, just to kind of, break that open, kind of crack the egg here in the conversation, and maybe some bit of InSperity's history in kind of creating this market. And then from there, we're going to talk to you, Rob, about the work that you do with clients and how you bring and add value. But let's start with that kind of general question. What is a PEO?
I had the same question a couple of years ago. So PEO is by definition a professional employment organization. Our CEO, Paul Savardi, actually created the entire industry almost 40 years ago. He's back in the day in Texas. He had two failed small businesses, and him and his partner at the time said, there's got to be a better way to do this. And they created this entire industry. We're known as a certified PEO. So they went to the IRS, they got it passed through all the legal requirements to have that done and created the industry. Now we have a lot of competitors in the industry as well. But I think we do it differently, and I think we do it better than most. And so I'm really excited to be here. This company's been trying to recruit me for the last 5 years, and I wish I would have come here 10 years ago, honestly. So I planted my flag here. This is where I am. This is where I'm going to be. And this is where I get to end my career at some point, next 10 to 15 years.
It's a good testament. So a professional employer organization.
Employment organization.
On a day-to-day basis, what are the things that a PEO will do? Let's just say for me as owner, CEO of One Accord, what could you do for me?
Well, that's a great question. I always say we deliver a trilogy of services. First and foremost, we are a professional services organization. And so really, I always say there's 3 tiers. Tier 1 is just comprehensive HR governance, policy, infrastructure. How do you run the business using all the pieces that we can bring to the table to execute your operations? And then secondly, where we hang our hat is really helping our clients maximize the enterprise value. Like you said, enterprise value to me is what it's all about. I'm a balance sheet guy. My background is accounting, economics, and finance. And I just want to help companies grow. And the best fits for us are companies that are on a mission to get better, not just to compete, to win, but to compete in a unique way to really generate profitability. And that's what we like to do to help our clients. And then thirdly, it's about working capital management strategies. If you think about revenue and EBITDA, the biggest gap between those two is and the operating expense is labor, right? Labor, payroll taxes, benefits, workman's comp. So strategies to really create liquidity and cash flow in those areas, aligning that talent to whatever the CEO's strategy is at the business unit level, and then helping them just really not just compete to be great at the return on invested capital for their industry, but really outperforming them. If we can help their clients do that, then we want to. Netflix was our client, HelloFresh, Workday, DraftKings. They've all outgrown us and left us, but our CEO calls that a success penalty. But we get to hang our hat on that. So that's what we bring to the table.
I mean, those are some great brands.
Absolutely.
When you say they outgrew you, what does it look like when somebody outgrows?
They're large enough. They become large enough in terms of scale and revenue, headcount to really have their own team in-house. And so that's what we're talking about. So for a smaller company, that 25 to 100, 150, even, larger 500 individuals, we are able to bring a team of resources to the table so that company can focus on the growth of the company, and we can bring all the infrastructure and resources to help the HR piece, but really to drive the value of that business from a strategic perspective.
Totally understood. I mean, at the size we are, about a FTE of 30, 35, in that low 30s, does not make sense for us to have an internal team responsible for everything that you would do for us in that PEO kind of space.
Absolutely. And nor do you probably want to do some of that stuff, right?
No,
I mean,
no, I don't.
we're what is it? We want to grow and build. That's where I want to
Yeah.
hang my hat all day.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, before we go into that, I mean, tell us about Rob. Tell us about you. Yeah.
Like I said, my background is accounting, economics, and finance. I started after college. I started my career with a real estate investment trust company in San Francisco. We bought and sold apartment buildings, shopping center. I worked for a guy that was at the time I thought brutal, but he actually created the guy I am today. I spent almost 3 years on a headset. Our office was in Sausalito, overlooked the Bay of San Francisco, and I'd get a building owner or a shopping center owner on the phone, and I'd go grab Mark at the time, and I had this Y cord I'd plug in, and I would just listen to Mark have this conversation about what that investor is trying to do with their properties, where they want to take it, and then how did we, eventually make them a client. And one of the things I learned from Mark is that in sales, which I have a PhD in enterprise sales, right? And you can't get a degree in that. You got to learn the hard way. Lots of no's, lots of doors shut. Is really like my number one job is I'm a resource. I'm right in the center. If someone needs something, I know where to go get it and how to bring it in. I don't have all the answers, but I know where to find them. And that's what I get to do every day. And that's what I live for. And
All
what's
right.
cool is about my role today is I come from the national accounts, major accounts world where I was selling all over the country, both to private companies and government. And now I get to actually work in a business community. And our mantra for our company from our CEO is that we want to help small businesses thrive so communities can prosper. And when I first heard that, it didn't resonate with me because I wasn't in that space. But now that I am, and I get to meet guys like you, guys like Bob Nowak, just all these different movers and shakers in my community that I get to see every day. It just makes me feel we're literally making a difference in the business community on the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest across the country. We have 90 offices. So, we have 90 offices with other alpha sellers like me, but, who focus on business consulting. And it's a great culture. I'm just happy to be here.
I love a lot of things you said. I was at an event where the president of Microsoft was speaking, Brad Smith, and Microsoft is not a Main Street company. Just so the orders of magnitude that he was speaking into far exceed, but he spoke of millions, if not billions of dollars that Microsoft had put into the economy by way of philanthropic grants and other donations and support for housing and health and human services and the arts. And he made the point that not a single one of the dollars that he was talking about were tax dollars. They were philanthropic contributions from the company into the community. And I think even though Microsoft is not a Main Street company, its roots are in a community, and the community is better because that business has its roots in that community. And InSperity didn't start out with 90 offices across the country, right? It started somewhere. And I'm no longer enamored with professional sports players or actors or singers. My heroes are the entrepreneurs that built companies so great that they span across state lines. They employ hundreds of people. They create wealth and opportunity. The companies that create homeowners, the companies that create the next generation. Yeah, we could talk. I think you and I could talk about that one for hours. Just,
my former father-in-law, who's, one of my mentors, very close to him. He started, with nothing, one of 13 kids, the youngest, went to work after going to Oregon State for Chevron, started selling tires. And then that evolved and he bought a station and then became a mechanic, right? They had garages and then that changed. And now he's a grocer. They had 7 stores at one time. He's no longer in the business, but just watching that evolution and like what he was able to do for where my kids went to school. He funded computer labs. He funded, sports fields. It's all these different things that one person with a vision that worked hard could do. And that gives me goosebumps. I mean, that, when I was at your event a couple of weeks ago, their anniversary, you were speaking directly to me, whether you knew it or not, and the things you were saying. And I'm like, I got your back, Nick. Let's go change the world, one company at a time.
Love it. So, well, let's talk about that, changing the world one client at a time. So we've got the entrepreneur that starts with the single location and goes to multiple locations. And to do that, they need to hire people.
Right. Absolutely.
And when you hire people, you've got great opportunity and you've got risk.
Absolutely.
And you've got expense. Where
do we start with that conversation?
Where do I even start with that, man? it was overwhelming me just kind of thinking about it. So
Well,
yeah.
even before you get to those locations, I always want to know, how did they even get into the company? Did they buy it? Did they inherit it? Did they just start it from scratch? What did revenue look like at the time? What was the vision at the time? But really, one of my favorite subjects in economics is competitive strategy. And I want to have a conversation about their strategies. When you think about the 5 fundamental roles of every CEO, it's define the strategy, not the corporate strategy, so to speak, but the business unit strategy, and then raise that capital to implement it, build a team to execute it, communicate the heck out of it, and then hold people accountable. And 3, 4, and 5 is what we do all day long as a company. But really, where we start is having that conversation about strategy, because it's great to have a company and be a business owner, but at the end of the day, it's profitability, right? How do you maximize the value of that company? Because one day, whether you want to or not, you're going to walk away from that business, and there should be a major liquidity event at that point for all the hard work you put into it. And I know that's what you guys' focus is. That's what our focus is. And so the way to do that is understanding that strategy, because when you break down strategy, it has 2 components. It has a unique value proposition. Who are you going to serve? Who are your clients? Defining that client, what services are you going to deliver and at what price? And then just as importantly, what resources do you need? How many people do you need? What's everyone's role and job function? What's that value chain look like? And at what cost, right? And price minus cost equals profit. That's how we hold ourselves to, being able to create value. Is when you look at every industry, they have an industry average return on invested capital. Every company falls either below that, at that, or above it. And we want to know why they're in one of the, one of those 3 areas. And then that's the starting point for all of our conversations, is really like understanding that. Not every business owner wants to talk about that, and they're probably not a good fit, but the ones that do, they're ready to go. I mean, they're like, let's get together, let's sit at the table and start whiteboarding this out, having a deeper conversation.
And in that strategy, so there are people, there are the investments, as you say, the investment of capital that we're seeking a return on. So return on that invested capital. And sometimes that's a building. Sometimes it's a piece of equipment. Manufacturing, it might be a CNC machine, or tech, it might be a bunch of laptops and monitors and so forth, but there's some expenses there. But you said earlier, the biggest cost in that OpEx is going to be personnel. Yeah. So
Go ahead.
talk more.
No, I was just going to say, when the best conversations we have, and I know they're going to become a client, is when they're just open, right? They're transparent. This is who I am. I'm 100% authentic. Go to my house, this is how I am. If we go fish, I like to fly fish. But if we, anything we're doing, this is the guy I am, right? And so being able to have those open, transparent conversations about, what someone's doing. And these business owners, at times they have problems. They hire someone else. They put Billy into this seat or Sally into this seat, and they're probably not the right fit because they're just trying to put out fires. And so how do we get them to stop putting out fires and pulling back and going, okay, what are we trying to do? And how do we try and solve that? And then who's the right person for that job? You don't want me to come in and manage an office. That's not my strength. My strength is, let's go grow this thing, right? You got to put the right people in the right seats, and you can't do that until you understand that value proposition and that value chain. And then we start plugging things in and getting to the most return on our dollar, because we got to cover that, the cost of debt and equity, right? It's not free, it's not cheap.
So in identifying, I would think that before we put people into seats, we have to identify the seats.
Exactly.
Which is strategy.
Exactly.
And so, okay, we've got a clear strategy, and we've got a general sense of the roles that are necessary to deliver on that strategy or achieve the outcomes of that strategy. Then we have to hire. Like, we have to actually select the people, and maybe there's a default to folks that have been around, so we're just shuffling people from one seat into another, or creating a new role, or something that way, or we're actually going to bring folks in externally and hire. And in moving seats around, sometimes we uncover the fact that there isn't a seat for, you said, Billy or Sally or whomever, right? These are tough decisions.
Absolutely.
To make. And doing that right is important on all fronts, right? It's important then to protect one's self and one's business, right? Because not only is HR, human resources, human capital, a significant expense, it's also a significant risk.
Everyone you hire is a new risk. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. And that's really premise or task phase 1 of what we do. We bring to that table that governance, those policies, and that infrastructure. Is when I meet with a new client, I always ask for an offer letter. say, send me an offer letter. I just want to see what this offer letter says. And from a couple of different positions to see how they align up and they equate to each other. And it's really that offer letter is which our promise to that employee and that employee's promise to us to deliver. And we want to make sure that that matches up. But for some of these fast growing companies, all of a sudden they don't match up anymore. And now you're creating some sort of risk because that person's they're not being held accountable or they're not producing what's the new requirement, but it's not in writing. And in states like Oregon and Washington, you file a claim, the company's going to lose most of the time. So we want to protect everyone and we want to make it right for the employee because they are the most important assets.
Yeah, I think right behavior is the best prevention of risk. Like do things right, do things above board. That's the best way to minimize risk. And yet risk still exists because stuff happens, right? And the interpretation of right and wrong is oftentimes different from person to person. But yeah, be transparent, be above board. And interesting though, as an entrepreneur, as an owner of a company, I didn't go to school on writing offer letters. I don't know what should or shouldn't be in it. I sure as heck don't have any interest or capacity to be looking at state to state employment law. Like, I'm not doing that.
And those laws change on a regular basis.
They do.
But they
Yeah.
don't change just at the state level. They change at the county, at the city level.
Yeah.
If you're like a SaaS company, if you're doing X amount of dollars in a particular state, now you're on this whole new tax system. And so just understanding all those different nuances is all those risks is what we take off the table. And working with partners like CPAs, strategic accountants.
Yeah. But you have offices in 90 offices across the country. You've worked with the IRS to get classification as a PEO. It's interesting to think of a small business with enterprise level supports, right? Guarding against some of those things. So then I started to think, well, gosh, that's got to be expensive. And, as a CEO of a, we'll say small, closely held business, that becomes a concern, right? That meaning expense. Is it expensive?
Well, it's not compared to the value that we can create, and that's why it's really more of a value conversation of not what is it, but what can it be if we do it this way and we start really building this together. But
Yeah.
expensive is relative, right? I mean, you live in Bellevue, Washington, so I mean, I love that
Yes.
place. Yeah,
So do I. I think of the thing about insurance is that it's expensive until you file a claim, right? And risk mitigation is expensive until you protect your company from what could be a catastrophic thing. But also the opportunity cost of time and attention and energy, right?
absolutely.
We're at a place right now, just internally here, where I look at a task and I think, well, just take a simple back of the napkin equation. An owner operator of a $5 million company, doing $5 million a year in sales. If we just say that on a 40-hour a week basis, that CEO's time is worth $2,500, because that would be the salary, right? The hourly rate for a $5 million salary on a 40-hour work week, which we all know that's not how it works. But I just, I start to look at tasks and I say, what's an hour of my time cost me? If I could take that hour, or what might be 4 hours studying employment law to properly draft a offer letter, to somebody in California, let's double that, 8 hours for me
Right.
to uncover all the stuff, right? What is the opportunity cost for me in doing so? And if I miss something that's critical and the California State Franchise Tax Board, or whatever, whomever it is, takes issue with the way that I'm doing business, now I'm distracted even further. And now I'm taking my eye off the ball, which ought to be serving the clients that we have really well and looking for more clients that we can serve really well, in that order. And then, not to mention, taking care of the people that are on the team very well, with excellent benefits, with good HR policies, right? Having an HR handbook that is actually helpful to the people on the team, right?
Absolutely. And again, those are foundational pieces that are a must have, right? So either the founders can do it or they can outsource it or they can bring someone in-house to do it.
Well, if they're a must have though, how many firms that are in this, let's just say $5 to $10 million revenue range, actually have all those things buttoned down really well?
Well, they have them, but have they been renewed? Have they been updated? It's just those are the things you start to see. And a lot of the clients some of the clients we talk to they're like, we just got another former employee filed this against us or this against us, and even though the employee, it's maybe not who was wrong or right, but it's going to happen. If it's going to happen, you got to be able to defend against it. You can't prevent it, right? It's so the risk is there. Let's eliminate that risk and keep moving forward. But but again, part of that strategy is defining like leadership. What are they going to do? How are they going to spend their time every single day? I know for me, it's prospecting, following up, and not closing, because it's not a close. We are really opening something. It's the best use of my time is making sure that our funnel is full, because again, we have those success penalties where they're leaving. Just making sure that everything is moving through the process on a proven, repeatable, every day, going after the things that are moving the needle for our company, for our office, for our region. I want a solid pipeline so that when I do report what I'm trying to do, it's real, right? There's no reason to throw pie in the sky. The best job security, the best when I sleep so well at night is I set a brand new meeting. I had a great follow up call with someone. Just I know things are just moving through, and I get to open up new relationships. And I'm very universe driven, and I'm all about the conscience, right? It's like what I just believe that all the things I imagine in my mind have already happened in some other timeline. Now I'm just working through to get to that timeline. So it's if I keep doing the right thing every day, success is coming. So
I love that, man.
hopefully that
That's,
wasn't a ramble, but that's just that's
it's a great way to kind of conclude a conversation focused on strategy, growth, risk mitigation, which is the future that we imagine, right? That vision, let's call it, because vision precedes strategy. We have to see it out there. We know it's already happened. We just have to find our way to.
That's Mozart, right? I mean, that's how he did. Mozart was one of the few guys that didn't have to write things. It was already written. He just had to now connect the dots to get to the end.
That's beautiful. Rob, great conversation. How do folks find you if they want to talk more about what you're doing in that space of strategy and those three circles on the Venn diagram that you're focused on?
Well, they can go to InSperity.com. We're the Oregon office. We're the only office in Oregon. But also I can share my information with you. I'm at Rob.Torres at InSperity.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Rob Torres. Let's look for the big, huge head. I coached football. I played football. And my mom used to tell me in high school, like, honey, I could always tell where you were because you had the special order 7-7 helmet. So, it's just, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me or connect me through you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on the Value Factory, Rob.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Nick.